Welcome back, everybody. I've missed you. I know I haven't seen you for at least a couple of weeks, and it's been a year since last time we met was 2020. And I thought, what a way to kick off 2021, which in Chinese calendar, that would be the year of the bull. I wanted to kick it off with Bolo. So please welcome to the show, Rich Ting. Hey, Rich.
How you doing?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for joining me. I really, really appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me on. Thank you.
Yeah, man, we've missed you. And by the way, before we get into anything, I know the whole Warrior family, everybody on the Facebook group, and everybody who's just starting to watch, one of my favorite shows on HBO Max. If you have not seen at least the first 6 or 7 episodes of season one, please stop because there are going to be a lot of spoilers ahead. Watch it late. Everything is going to be on YouTube, and you're going to be set. So spoilers ahead for everybody. Please be warned. So Rich, we've missed you, man. We had to wait a long time until season 2 would come out, right? I didn't even have Cinemax. I specifically got Cinemax so I could watch Warrior. And
Wow.
then, watch season 1 that had to wait until season 2 came out,
Yeah.
watch season 2 only to know that, hey, there might not be a season 3 because of everything that's going on. Then it's 2020
hmm
and missed Bolo. We totally missed Bolo. So as soon as I got on the Facebook group, I said to guys, "Hey, I want to talk to Rich." It blew up. Everybody wanted to talk to Rich. As a matter of fact, people now have a great idea of having you come back because you were loved as a character, and people on the Facebook group have figured out a way for you to come back. So we need to talk. We need to
Okay.
talk to Jonathan Proper. We need to talk to Jason Lin, and we need to figure out if we can do a twin and get you back once they start shooting season 3. Get a Bolo twin back in there because you are missed, my man.
All right. Well, first off, thank you. I appreciate it. It's season 2, like you said, came out a little later than expected, but to have this kind of response from people like yourself and the fans, about Bolo in season 1, that it's just really humbling and yeah, it's, with everything that's going on in the world and for people to still to be tuned in to our show as it, just finale season 2 a few months ago. It just speaks volumes of, number one, our fan group, and our fan base. And so a big shout out to everyone out there. Thank you very much for all the support, but also to the creators of the show, as well as to the actors and ourselves who put the time and effort in. So just to reiterate, thank you very much. I appreciate all the support. It's been so humbling in so many ways. So thank you.
Listen, there's so many shows out there, and Warrior is a great show. I'm an actor. I watch a lot of shows. I interview a lot of people. It's one of my favorite shows. It combines a incredibly interesting subject matter. It is a really, really good drama. It's a historical drama. When you were shooting it, it was before all of the crap started happening, and then it became even more timely. And it has real martial artists and a real martial art component to it. So it encapsulates kind of everything that I love. So absolutely, of course, me and thousands of people around the world are loving the show, and that's why we're so happy that it's on HBO Max. Now, no offense to HBO, we wish it was on Netflix or somewhere else. But anyway, we just want what happened to Cobra Kai to happen to Warrior.
Yes.
We want a wider audience. We want seasons 3, 4, 5, and 6. We want the original thing that Jonathan Tropper had planned. I think it was planned to be a 6-year thing.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we want, because there are so many storylines, there are so many things that need to be continued, and even more right now because of what has happened in 2020, which we'll touch upon in a few minutes. But the show needs to be there. There is a lot of crap on television. This is one of the rare shows that actually is a really, really, really great show, and it needs to be seen.
I appreciate it. I feel like we need you on the marketing team and our publicity team, because that was well said, probably the best said yet. So thank you for that.
Thank you. Listen, that's I'm going to continue bringing as many people on from the show as I can. I think you're 6th or 7th person that I've had a chance to talk to from the show. We're going to continue beating that drum. Obviously I signed the petition. I'm going to continue doing what I can. And the Facebook group is growing. So, I just actually posted, there's a huge, I love martial arts Facebook group on Facebook, and it
Hmm.
has like 314,000, members. And I
Hmm.
just posted for everybody to go watch Warrior if they haven't done that. So we're
Thank you.
going to do our
Appreciate
best to continue spreading the love, because seriously, again, being a fan, I'm going to take the fan hat off for a moment,
it.
and
Okay.
just as an appreciator of martial arts, an appreciator of fine television experiences, this show needs to continue. That's as simple as it is. So if anybody's
I
watching,
agree.
Jonathan Crawford, anybody on the publicity circuit, I'm happy to help. Whatever I can do, I'm very happy to jump in.
Thank
Anyway,
you.
so unfortunately, again, you had a great arc on Warrior.
Hmm.
Unfortunately, it was too short. Did you know going into it that it's going to be a pretty short arc?
Yes, that was one thing that was voiced to myself and my team, once we booked the job. And Jonathan, who I refer to as JT, he called me up right after, we had booked it and we had our meetings. And, he said, first off, I want to make this, out in the open. This is nothing against you. This is nothing personal. This is definitely not something I would have told you once we got to Cape Town or even towards that episode in which you die.
Yeah.
I want it to be known now that the arc of season one has to have this death in it
Yes.
to basically have the entire story of season one come to kind of an intersection of which way is everyone going to go.
Yeah.
Without this death, we cannot end season one. He also told me I will do everything in my power to see if we can somehow steer this another direction in the next few months while we're shooting this thing. But he
Okay.
wanted me to have a clear, mind and an understanding of where the producers and where the writers were going with this prior to actually getting out there in Cape Town. So, on that respect, I owe so much gratitude to JT and the rest of the producers and the writers on this project, just because they were so transparent with me from the beginning.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, I actually thought the entire cast kind of knew. So when we were working on, because we shot the episodes out of order and just based on the way production is shot, as you know, we don't always shoot chronologically. So whatever episode we were working on prior to shooting episode 7, and we got episode 7. I know some of us were on set. I was on set. I was actually filming, and we got, the email, we got the updated script, and I remember everyone just kind of looked at me and they were like, "What?" And I was like, and I had no idea what was going on, because to me, I was like, okay, cool, we got episode 7. I'm focusing on this scene right now.
Yeah.
And I totally forgot. I mean, I know that I die. I just forgot everyone else didn't have an idea. So
Yeah.
then there was all this, discussion about what happened. Like, did something happen? I'm like, no, nothing happened. And they're like, they asked me the same question you did
Yeah.
then. So in that respect, I think it was really cool that it was kept quiet. It wasn't kept a secret by any means. It was just kept quiet, and we just literally, it's like a football season, right? We just took each game or each episode at a time, not looking forward to episode 7 when you're filming episode 1. So in that respect, it kind of sucked because it brought up a lot of the emotions, because I'd already prepared myself, and then now, because I had bonded with these cast members and this crew and team out in South Africa, it just kind of, it was like experiencing it again for the first time with
Yeah.
tighter bonds. So it was emotional, and but we got through it, and I got through it, and blessed for the time I had on season 1.
Yeah. I'm gonna speak for myself. I'm not gonna speak for all the other fans, but
Okay.
um, I had a feeling that, oh, okay, Andrew's here, or I mean, Assam is here.
Yeah.
Uh, this is not going to end well. And I know Assam is the lead, so Assam is going to survive this. That means Bola has to go.
Yep.
But at that point, the only thought going through my mind was like, okay, if he has to go, it better be a great fight.
Mm-hmm.
And thankfully, it was. It was a
Mm-hmm.
really good fight, at
Thank you.
least from my perspective.
Thank
And
you.
they let Bolo go out in a respectful way. So that
Yeah,
part,
I got stabbed in the back basically. So yeah, that was respectful. Like I always, I joke, and I'm just like, of course Diane had to stab me in the back, or Mylene. But no, it was it was an epic fight for sure. A lot of work went into that. Um, the one thing I did regret is, and that's part of season one again, because we open the Warrior franchise basically with Assam coming over, but he's coming over to a world that was already existing prior to his arrival. And with that, the one guy, just on a personal level, on a fan level,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, I'm an actor, I'm Bolo, but at the same time, I'm a person and I'm a fan of people as well. There was this mutual understanding that was implied between Bolo and Lee Young, Joe Taslim's character.
Yeah.
And Joe being Joe and me being a fan of Joe, I literally told as many people as I said, I don't care if I lose. I just want that fight, because
Yeah.
that would be I could fan out on that one. You know what I mean? Just because I'm such a fan of Joe and all his work he's done, in Asia and all the things that he's been a part of, and how epic would it be to have, the Hopway guy versus, that group, and then, but that was already understood.
Yeah.
There's understood there's a past there. So whether we visit that past, hopefully down the line, which would be an awesome flashback. But then, yeah, I mean, that's the understanding that obviously, the Hopway have their people, and the Longzi have their guy. So now Assam is the new guy, right? So that's just one thing that, I was like, Joe, I want to fight you, man.
Yeah.
And he's such a nice guy. He's like, oh yeah, we should fight, and I'm like, all right, so let's do this. And they're like, oh no, it's already established, like, in the pretext, So fast forward to the fight with Andrew,
Yeah.
with Assam. I had that in the back of my head saying, okay, well, if I don't get to fight Lee Yong on camera in season one, then this fight has to make up for both of those. It has
Yeah.
to be the epic fight with Assam in the present, but it also has to leave the viewers with enough imagination of what kind of fight that, because there's definitely been a fight. There's definitely, because the mutual respect comes from somewhere, whether that was a draw, whether he beat me once, I beat him once, or whatever. It's almost left to the imagination, which I thought was even greater,
Yeah.
since you don't visually see it. And so in doing the finale fight with Andrew, I really felt that, it was a long fight. And if you track it, we're obviously in a house.
Yeah.
The funny thing was, we started in the main room and we went around through the hallway back into the main room. And we wanted to capture, when I say we, it means me, myself, Andrew, producers, but, also Brett Chan, our stunt coordinator, which we wanted to show the evolution of the fight, because, it would be unrealistic to go and do a full fight like that in real life and come around the last turn back into the living room and we're still sharp. There's no way. You know what I mean? With all the mixed martial arts and all the jujitsu and just all the kung fu stuff, like, you're going to be tired by the time you get slammed. And so that was really cool, because organically, like anything else, we have a certain amount of time to film these things. We're also on a budget, and time is money, and vice versa. So literally, we were working, and it was literally like, okay, let's get to the end of the hall, man. We got to we got to make the turn, we got to make the turn again, and you got to get me back up, and yeah, fatigue set in. And, of course, you have lighting issues, you have prop issues, you have camera issues. And so we got to do it again, so at the very end, in the final edit, I really felt that it captured that real raw sense of how a fight would start, evolve, and finish. Obviously, I would have rather preferred not getting stabbed in the back by the sister, but, life happens, and, she came back.
But they also had to show that you and Assam were on the same level. So, to have a clear winner between the two of you would also be anticlimactic. So
Yeah.
they left it at a point where, yeah, the two of you are evenly matched, and here you go.
Yeah. Like, I
So,
wanted my sister to show up and be like, oh yeah, So, but no, it was very well choreographed. And again, all respect and credit goes to Brett Chan, our stunt coordinator, and his team. And I was extremely happy with it.
Yeah. So what, again, kind of now going into a fan because you've, you've watched the show after that, probably more than once. Which one of the epic fights was your favorite that you were not in?
That I was not in.
That you were not in?
Oh, well, of course. Like if I hadn't died, then I would have fought Assam in that blood sport looking dungeon, underground Kumite like
Yeah.
arena. I wanted the arena, you know. Yeah, I got the house fight, but that's just me speaking as Rich. I want that live audience. I
Yeah.
want that introduction. You know, and I want that platform. But again, that fight had to happen because of my death. You know what I mean? So
Yep.
yeah, that would have been the fight. I know Dean and Andrew got into it in I think the last episode, and that was
Yeah.
awesome just because it was in that steel mill, and that just the setting and the environment was cool. But I'm a fan. I grew up with kickboxer and blood sport, and best of the best. You know what I mean? So I like that tournament kind of, because I used to fight in the tournaments as well in real life. So to me, that is a full culmination of Rich as a child, watching things on television and at the theaters, and then actually evolving into a martial artist that is able to perform on camera. And now I arrived kind of thing. So, but no, season one was season one. I think any first season of any show, regardless of the subject matter, is always the most difficult. I don't want to sound cliche, but it is what it is. And there was so many layers to the stories that were told in season one and behind the whole Bruce Lee inspired show that it's almost impossible to capture everything in 10 episodes. You know what I mean? And to introduce it. So I think we did a really, really good job
Mhm.
at kind of putting it out there for people to absorb. And like you said, we just need a greater audience. It's not one of those shows where you got, oh, let me get into it a little bit. Let me by episode 5, I got in. No, but right off the top. So what I always say is, if you haven't watched it, just watch the first episode.
Mhm.
Give yourself 50-55 minutes. Watch it. If you hate it, don't watch the second one. But what happens is everyone loves it. So we just need to get it out there more.
Yeah, and that's the HBO Max. So I'm pulling
Yeah.
for it.
Yep.
And hopefully we get that. Again, thankfully, the silver lining, thankfully is the wrong word to use. Silver lining of the fact that a lot of people are still under lockdown is that they have a chance to watch more. So hopefully they get a chance and we get more eyes on HBO Max. Um, Very cool. So I know, again, from the martial art perspective, you started taking Taekwondo, which I found interesting because, again, you saw Bruce on TV when you were 4 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So and you were, well, you went to San Francisco. How old were you when you went to San Francisco? You were in high school,
I
right?
grew up. I was born and raised in Los Angeles, and we moved. My family and I moved to the Bay Area when I was about 7 or 8.
Okay.
But I had started at the age of 4, so my base in Taekwondo was already like 3-4 years into it.
Okay.
And then we moved to the Bay.
So, because that's the thing, right? So I'm wondering why you started with Taekwondo. Was it because no other schools were around and it was easily accessible, or you also saw, well, I need to kind of do some timing and see when Bloodsport came out and when you saw it.
Yeah. Initially at the age of 4, I honestly couldn't decipher Kung Fu versus Taekwondo versus Jiu-Jitsu, and all the, Kempo and all those different styles. And I think the default button was the closest studio in school to where I was living was
Yeah,
actually a Tang Soo studio, which was like kind of a
yeah,
pre-Taekwondo.
yeah,
And so it's called, my mom was fine driving me there, and that's where it started. And
yeah,
actually it evolved from there because I then became a fan of an individual by the name of Ernie Reyes Jr. and out of West Coast Taekwondo in the Bay Area. And he was the child actor martial artist that was on a show called Sidekicks.
yeah,
And when we moved to the Bay, that's when I was old enough to identify like, hey, I like what I'm doing, but I want to train at Ernie Reyes' studio. And that's where I eventually earned my black belt, was from Ernie Reyes' Taekwondo. So it was obviously started and initiated by Bruce.
Yeah.
But then as I started evolving, and growing and maturing, as an elementary student, I was able to identify other people like Ernie, who was obviously younger at the time,
Mhm.
as, hey, I want to do what he's doing, you
Yeah.
know. And so that's the long answers to why it was Taekwondo and not another form.
And aren't Philip and Stephen Ray, aren't they in San Fran, or weren't they? I think they had schools.
They're originated from San Francisco, is from what I know. Ironically, I know them, and they're in LA now. They've been in LA for a while, and yeah, I always geek out when I see them. They're great guys. I met Simon in the
Simon.
stunt
Yeah,
world.
right.
Yeah, I met
Yeah.
Simon in the stunt world, and I actually met Philip later. Uh, Both amazing guys. It's always weird because I'm always like, that's Tommy and Dehan,
I
like,
know. Yeah.
but not really, because and then they're brothers in real life, so that's always a fun encounter. But yeah, huge fan of them since I was a kid, and obviously best of the best in that whole film.
That's me as well. And once I started the show, I wanted to have Philip on.
Hmm.
So I go on IMDb Pro, not yeah, IMDb Pro, and I start looking at representation. I was going to send an email, and then I see Philip studio, because he's a
Yeah.
producer.
Yep.
And then I called the studio thinking that I'm going to talk to one of his folks and ask for him. He picks up the phone.
Yeah.
I almost lost my ability to speak. I'm like, oh my God, I'm speaking to Philip Ray.
Yeah.
Okay. So like,
No,
we
they're
went
very just easygoing, humble individuals. And they've been in the business a lot longer than people think, and
yeah.
and so it's so refreshing. I mean, like I said, I met Simon first, and he's been like a senior to me in so many ways throughout my career. And then to meet his brother later in life,
Yeah.
and he accepted me really fast. I met his son, I met his wife, and they're just good people, and it's so cool to meet those kind of quote unquote Hollywood people these days that are just really just themselves and open. And they both encourage me all the time, which it's so competitive in this game, right? That they're people that I looked up to and still do. And now I'm sitting at the same table with them at an event, and they're telling me about certain things. And I still forget that I'm like, these are the guys. It's like any kid in the world is sitting and watching Best of the Best, and they're like, oh my God, this is probably the most epic martial arts film I've seen, especially in a tournament setting.
Mhm.
And so many years later, you're like having a conversation with these guys, and they're really cool, and they're really just, like I said, sweet human beings. It's like, it's very, very refreshing. And that's why they stand out, because those kind of people in the industry are rare, and except for obviously our Warrior cast, which just completely just, speaks for itself. We were talking about that before we started recording, but yeah, I mean, I've been lucky, been very lucky to be surrounded by these kind of people, throughout my career.
But I've heard you say this before in one of your interviews, that it's not luck. It's the combination of luck and hard work.
Yeah,
And
exactly, exactly.
that's where you are, because you've done a lot of both. And all the luck. There's a reason why some people are lucky.
Yeah, and my thing is, we lack control of our final destination to an extent in this business,
Yeah.
and I come from a very structured, disciplined background
Mhm.
where you study today, you take the test tomorrow, and you pass because you were in charge and in control of how much you prepared, and then you move on. And this industry doesn't allow you to do that formula at all. And so for me, the only thing I can control is how hard I work every day. So that's why I always say I believe in, you need a little bit of luck along with the hard work. You can't just sit around and hope that you're the next American Idol tomorrow. You know what I mean? Because that's a lottery pick. So, and also you have to enjoy it. I enjoy working hard. And to me, it's actually not working hard, to be honest. To me, it's just what I do. I think that term comes into play when people or third parties, see me from a viewer's point of view, or a spectator's point of view, and they say, "Wow, you work hard." To me, I only work hard when I have to do things I don't want to do.
Okay.
That's when it's hard work. but I love what I do. I'm blessed to do what I'm doing, especially in 2021 right now. And it's just, I have no excuse, there are no excuses. So
I agree. Speaking of 2020, in again, one of your interviews that I was watching, there was a question of, would you tell your 4-year-old self now from 2019 about 2019? And I started to laugh because the question that immediately came to mind to ask you is, okay, well, 2019 is gone. Would you tell your 4-year-old self about 2020?
yeah, right. Yeah, I would have said invest your money in a home gym and cardio equipment and
Yeah.
stop going to the gym, because in 2020 everything's going to get shut down.
Yep.
It sounds very spoiling, but it's a big part of my life and my daily schedule.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal to me this year. I sound like a gym rat, which I am. But again, it's because I enjoy training. And when something like just access, I mean, I tried to go to the park, when quarantine first hit, and they had blocked off the jungle gym. Like, I was trying to find, literally, I was trying to find a pull-up bar because I didn't have one installed in my house, like in the doorway or anything. And I literally was like, okay, so today I'm gonna go do pull-ups. And I literally drove around LA, and every park that had a jungle gym, they had put up like this plastic barricade thing, and it was inaccessible. So then I got real desperate, and I started just looking for beams, like at an intersection, or at a signal. And I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna do pull-ups at this you know what I mean? It got to a point where that's how obsessive and crazy I got, because you don't realize these simple things that you take for granted every day, and that's just the fact that you can go outside without a mask. You know what I mean? And I think that's the biggest lesson from 2020, which is, appreciate the small things, because, again, it sounds so cliche, but you don't appreciate until it's gone.
Yeah.
And look, now I know you're not in Los Angeles, but restaurants are not open. You have to drive up, grab it, leave. You have to wear a mask everywhere. I got to wear a mask in my building to go check the mail. You know what I mean? It's just like,
No.
it's just, walking down the hallway, it's different now. So luckily, I think the way I've been raised and the way I prepare since I was a kid, I've lived every day to its fullest. At least I've tried to. So to me, there's not a lot of knowledge I would tell my 4-year-old self about 2020, other than just appreciate the small things and focus on your health.
By the way, one of the things that you could have done for pull-ups is construction. I'm assuming LA has the same thing. Downtown Chicago has a lot of construction zones.
Yeah.
The beams, you can go.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what I would have told my 4-year-old self about 2020 is that it's going to feel very scary, and you're going to get it too, but you're going to be okay. So don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, to me, I always relate everything to an athletic point of view, just because I was an athlete first before I was an academic, before I was a collegiate football player, before I was a martial artist, anything.
Yeah.
And what I always say is, you just got to have to take every play one step at a time, and don't play scared, because when you play scared, that's when you get hurt.
Yep.
So there's so much fear and negativity going on, this past year, that if you live in that fear, it's just going to be self-degrading. It's just going to ruin you. Be aware. I'm not saying don't be scared. You can be scared, be aware, but don't let that fear overwhelm you where it hinders you from acting or taking action. And so again, just exactly what you said. I agree completely. You're going to be fine. Everything's going to work out, but just know, and I think it's one of, I've seen that quote from Chadwick Boseman about, these times prepare us for the journey, and I agree with that.
Me too. Man, it's again, I remember back again to 2020 for a second. I remember watching CNN and watching Chris, getting COVID and then doing the shows while he had COVID from his home, from the basement. And I thought, that's respect, and I respect it as a host. So when I got COVID, which was
Oh
in
wow.
December. I got COVID in December. I was
Okay.
doing those, and I talked to Joanna and I talked to Langley
Mm-hmm.
while I had COVID.
Yeah.
So that was kind of my final, check to the 2020.
Well,
Um,
I'm glad you're doing well. Did not know that, but
yeah,
fantastic to hear that.
no, it sucked. First week was okay. Second week was worse. I had to take antibiotics because it went into my bronchioles.
Uh-huh.
But comparatively speaking, kids were everybody in the family got it. So the kids
Okay.
were mine. My wife and myself, we were minor to medium,
Okay.
but never had fever.
Okay.
We obviously didn't have any serious kind of symptoms. It was
Okay.
scary and it sucked, but knock on wood, we went on our viral protocol and did a bunch of things, and something worked,
Yeah,
and
you
we're okay.
managed it, which I feel is honorable because there's a lot of people that have been reckless about it. So,
Yeah, we did our best,
but like
but
I said, glad to be speaking to you like this.
me too. Oh, me absolutely, man. Going back to martial arts because again, I started because of Bruce and I started because of Jean-Claude. I was
Okay.
doing splits between the chairs in high school because of
Hmm.
Jean-Claude. I started
Okay.
because of him. Nobody taught me how to stretch properly, which is why now I have hips issues. But I was doing that, and that, by the way, saved me from fighting in high school because kids assumed that I knew what I was doing. I had no idea. I
Hmm.
just did splits between the chairs.
Thank
But
you, John Claude. I love it.
I started my martial arts because of those two. Um,
Hmm.
and I went into all sorts of things. And eventually now I'm getting into the Jeet Kune Do and the Filipino martial arts and Kali and a bunch of other things
Hmm.
that I'm doing for fun. There are enthusiasts, and there are fighters. I'm an enthusiast. I,
Hmm.
I have my black belt, but I hope to God I never get into a fight because I have no idea if I'm going to be able to do anything.
Hmm.
So you did it a lot more seriously. So you did taekwondo. You got your black belt at 13. Then you did well, was it JKD next or
Yeah, it was a mixed actually because at that point, I actually my focus changed to kind of the primary sports of like football, basketball, baseball, and track. And
yeah,
the first goal was to obviously play Division I collegiate football. So,
yeah.
once I got into junior high school and then into high school, um, martial arts I'd already had established such a strong foundation of martial arts that I still actually competed in tournaments throughout high school, but I wasn't going every day like I did as a child and training every day. So there was a shift there. The reason why I started with my JKD and my Wing Chun and Jiu-Jitsu training was actually at the time I was in high school in San Francisco, and I would train on the weekends with the San Francisco Crash Unit, which was their gang task force of the SFPD.
Yeah.
And at the time, I was a realistic training partner for a lot of the cops because I was bigger. I was athletic, obviously, because I was focusing on my sports. And I trained with, at one academy who only had weekend training sessions with the police officers.
Mhm.
And that's when the whole mixed martial arts, the
Yeah.
the the unorthodox stuff really started kicking in because taekwondo, as you know, is such a technical strong foundation. you
Mhm.
know Front stance, horse stance, everything is very technical. And then,
Yeah.
as you know now, with Jeet Kune Do and the Wing Chun and all the mixed martial arts, it's technical but in a different way.
Yeah.
And it's in a more realistic way. Like I've never thrown a front stance in a real fight. You know what I mean? I've never really thrown a front kick in a real fight. You know what I mean? So these things really kind of, they prepared me for life, is what I like to say.
Yeah.
And already having that strong athletic background, let alone a martial arts background, I'm now getting into more combat situations, whether it was with knives or guns or, just real life situations that would come up, that we can never hopefully predict and, hopefully never have to encounter. But like I said, life happens. So that was my intro. And then as I got into, skip, I don't know, 10, 15 years, as I got into the entertainment through the stunt world and started working with all these amazing stunt coordinators and fight choreographers, along with the evolution of film and fighting on camera, you know, it it, it wasn't. I just remember, like, I'm not gonna say which film it was, but I remember it was one of my early films, and there was a stunt coordinator who was like, "Hey, Rich, I think before you fight this guy, you should do a spin wheel kick, a jump kick, and pose." And I was
Oh,
like, and yeah, I was, and I was like, wow, that's and luckily I had there was an older actor with me that I had looked up to, and I kind of looked at him, and he was like, and he voiced it very politically correct and was like, I think it would be more realistic if they just engaged right away. And I said, yeah, I would feel more comfortable with that, and that's really the first time I was like, wow, we're not doing that anymore. We're not doing the whole, like, I'm going to circle you, you're going to circle me, and then we're going to engage. And so it's been fun because no matter what show, what character, um, I just finished up a new show with Jeff Bridges this past year for FX that's going to be streaming on Hulu. And not to give any spoilers away, but I mean, when you're doing jujitsu and you're going to the ground with Jeff Bridges and he's 71 years old, I mean, that's cool. You know what I mean? Because I don't think Jeff Bridges ever thought, hey, I'm going to be doing MMA stuff when I'm 71, and that's a reflection of where we are and what the viewers want. They want that realistic approach. The UFC has blown up, MMA has blown up, and people know what's real, and I think the hardest part for me is making sure we can show those beats and those micro moments on camera so that you feel it at your house watching it. Because as you know, a lot of the mixed martial arts, it's not so much that you see what happens, it's more about feeling what happens. The simplest is when you're getting choked out, you can't do anything. And so when you're watching that, you're like, why isn't he moving? It's because he's getting choked out. So how do we make the viewer understand that we are getting choked out, right?
yeah.
So there's got to be a little bit of Hollywood, sprinkled there, but at the same time, we want to keep the realness of it. And so, like I said, with every show, I just keep, I'm a student of martial arts. I hate saying I'm a martial artist because that makes me sound like I've perfected it, which I'm not near perfecting. So that's why I always like to say I'm a student of martial. I'm a student of the game, and it's been cool because I've been able to work, make money, and learn at the same time.
And when you were doing stunts, because I I saw a bunch of your stunts, and I saw that that's how you get started. There was a thought going through my mind of saying, if I'm Rich's parents, and he just left a JD MBA program to
Mm,
go do stunts. So
yeah,
you left law for stunts and getting thrown out of a window. I
yeah.
hear you're going the right way.
Well,
So did
yeah.
you
I
feel
mean, that was always a tough conversation. I knew it was going to be. I mean, it was a tough conversation to go to law school when I come from a medical family, right? So that was the first big headache conversation, ironically. And then, of course, you can imagine what the next one was like.
yeah,
But no, I've played full contact football since I was 8 years old, all the way
yeah.
through I was 21. Yeah, I got hurt, broken bones, separated this, separated that. But I would say I did stunts full time for like less than 2 years. In those less than 2 years, I took nastier hits than I took in the 13, 14 years of playing full contact football. And I
Mhm.
say that, number one, to give tremendous respect to the stunts, to the stunt men, the stunt women, that put their lives on the line for these shows, and people take it for granted, literally, like, there's so many hits, car hits, people jumping out of buildings, people hitting the concrete that never make the final edit. Yeah, they got paid for it, but they may have done something that's going to be that is going to be chronic now, that never made television, that never made the movie, never showed up on the movie screen. So, first and foremost, huge respect to them, to that community. And second of all, I think it was the best way to be introduced to the business, because come full circle on a show like Warrior now, where I'm fighting other actors, because I've been on the other side and I was really well trained and well versed. I always tell people just because you're a martial artist or you're technically sound here, or you win like, demonstrations here, that doesn't always translate to camera. It's like you have to have a foundation, but then you have to relearn the technique so that it plays for camera, because it's a
Yeah.
whole different game.
Right.
And so coming from that background and then going through what I call, like, they threw me in the fire with stunts, and just I learned so much in a year just being around the top guys in the business, that it still helps me, whether I'm fighting Andrew or I'm fighting, other stunt guys. And it just, in a way, it's like having a law degree. I just feel a little bit more safer. You know what I mean? Like, I just kind of know a little bit more, and I'm a little bit more aware of how this is going to go down. And if we go this way, well, we're going to go do this. And if we go that way, we're going to do that. It's never like a question mark, and so that was a fortunate introduction for me, going through stunts.
I get you. So who's again? There are some really good guys out there that are martial artists and they're actors. So
Mm-hmm.
not just actors who were taught to do something on
Mm-hmm.
film, but people who actually know what they're doing. So you're plugged into that community. Who are your favorite martial art actors?
Well, first off, because I am plugged into that community, I don't want to offend anyone, because sometimes these actors that have a martial arts background don't necessarily want to be labeled as a martial artist who's an actor. You know what I mean? They want to be labeled as an actor who has a background in martial art. I'm getting really technical, but it's because you put me in that situation.
You're right.
But I mean, so yeah, I mean, you're right though. There are some martial artists out there who literally are more on the stunt side, and want to stay in that kind of action genre, and and literally want to be active in every role, physically and martial arts wise, And then there are other artists who have that background, who like, I don't advertise my martial arts background, to be honest. My team and my management and my agency, we don't market that. It's something that I have, just like I have a law degree, just like I have an MBA, all this other stuff, right? But the one guy that comes to mind, and it's very easy to think about, is William Lee. And to me, growing up, and he hates when I say this because he feels old, so I apologize, Will, but it's the truth. And I've told him this because I've had the privilege of, it's another guy that I looked up to when I was younger, and then had the privilege of working on 2 different shows with this guy. And we spent a lot of time together, and he's a great human being, a great individual, a great senior to have, is like what I like to say about Philip and Simon Rhee as well. But Will, you know, I knew him as an actor first. I didn't realize he had competed at Cal, and had done all the tournaments, and was such a martial artist, literally. And that he came from a martial art. Like, his dad is a huge taekwondo instructor back in the day, and had a huge influence on the African American community back in DC, and is one of the founding fathers, and I didn't know all that. And so, to me, when you ask me that question, no hesitation, William Lee. I saw him in Torque. I saw him, with Jennifer Gardner back in the day on their show. And then I found out he was a martial artist. And then I saw him do stuff, and then I was, wow. And that was what impressed me more, is the fact that I didn't know his background.
Yeah.
And that I learned about it while following him as a fan. And then I actually met him and had the chance to work with him, and now can call him a friend of mine, and just give him so much credit and respect on what he's been able to accomplish.
Very cool. I understand that. Yeah, it's again, kind of, as an actor, when I look at people who are acting and are really good actors and that are real martial artists, to me, that's where I want to be. Even though I am not going to be at that level of martial arts, I can do martial arts on screen, and it's going to look fairly well if I get some training before, because I have a background in it.
Yeah.
But I'm not that. But Scott Atkins, Michael J. White,
Of
Tony
course.
Jaa, Donnie Yen, that's real people.
Yeah,
So
those guys are that's an elite group for sure.
by the way, Scott did a really good interview with Philip Ray, and they were talking about it, talking about best of the best, talking about martial arts. I didn't realize just how much Philip fought.
Yeah.
for real. And then, he was in movies. I didn't realize that. I have even more respect for Philip and Simon after that.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
you can kind of tell. I think it's kind of obvious, who's been in some situations and later is
yeah,
able to translate that in front, for an audience on camera. So,
yeah.
um, like I said, it's just different. It's the studio's different, real life is different, and then on camera is different.
Very cool. If again, I know the Facebook Warrior group wants me to come back to it. So if you were given a chance in whatever way to come back to Warrior in any other role, is that something that you would do?
Oh, 100%. It was funny because, as we discussed at the top of this
Yeah.
interview, JT and I have a great relationship, and while we were filming, he would come up to me and he would be like, "I think he has a twin," and I'm like, "Who?" Yeah, and I'm like, "Who?" He's like, "I think Bolo has a twin," and I'm like, and I'm filming this scene, I'm focused on this, and then he comes up, he's like, "I think he has a twin," and
Yep.
I'm like, "Okay, so what?" He's like, "So I think he comes to look for his brother."
Yeah.
And I'm like, okay, cool. Can you hold that thought? Let me go shoot this thing real quick. And it was so random because that's how he is. He's so open book with me and with everyone, I should say. And that's kind of, I think, how that twin concept kind of got out there. I definitely didn't come up with that. I love that concept. And I think prior to season 2, they were really trying to work that in. And just because of the whole hiatus that took place after season 1 and all of the internal happenings that happened with HBO and Cinemax, that I have no involvement with, obviously, that's
Mhm.
all hearsay. I think things just had to happen quickly,
Yeah.
and that storyline was never able to get really fully developed yet, and I don't think they had the time to develop it, to be honest.
Yeah.
But hopefully, knock on wood, if I mean, if season 3 were to happen, um, I
It
would
will.
be, yeah. I mean, when it happens, I would be more than thrilled to come back because I don't want to say what JT proposed,
No,
during
no, no.
season 1
Good.
about the twin, but there is he had brought up a twin,
Yep.
um, and a lot of details about that twin, which I thought was genius, as everything else is in his world, and at the very least, though. I would like to at least come back during season 3 for some flashbacks to establish that content and that context that was assumed in season 1.
Yeah.
Like a Rich Ting Joe Taslim fight. You know,
Awesome.
like you know, yeah, that would be epic. That would be epic. I want Joe. I want that guy. You know,
Yeah.
it's definitely that would just be a personal, like, bucket list check, which is like, yeah, I fought the guy in the raid. You know what I mean? So that would be pretty awesome. But yeah, I would, I'm happy and blessed to be a part of this whole Warrior family and to be a part of season 1. And I'm always at their avail.
Very cool. If you have it near you, do you have the hatchet? Do you have Bolo's hatchet?
Uh, it's not near me right now, but I have it. It's not near me right now, but I have it. And yeah, that's a prized possession of mine. Because they made it. I mean, it's real. You know what I mean? We have different versions of it, obviously, but the concept, which one of our directors, Lonnie, brought up, that it was a collaborative thing, and I can't give enough credit to our crew who actually made the thing. And I love that we were able to show its power. I think it was in episode 6 of the Feng Hai Casino. Yeah, just because that last smash shows you that there's obviously something going on the bottom of that thing, which was awesome because I wanted to give that justice. Because I was like, people just think it's a regular axe, so I throw it, I grab it, and then I'm able to show that not only is it a custom axe for my hand, but we got something else going on the bottom of it. So
Yeah. And it's a hammer, and it has, it
yeah,
has
it's
a
a hammer.
rim.
It's got the spike, which initially uh, was already created and designed prior to the railroad spike.
Ooh.
So when I saw the hatchet for the first time and the model of it, I was like, that kind of, I'd say, I didn't voice it to anyone at the time, but I was like, that kind of reminds me of like a railroad spike. That's cool. You know, it's a spike. And then eventually through my imagination and my research, you know, I proposed the whole railroad thing, so the whole railroad spike to JT as a prop for Bolo, and just something like a trinket that I have on me. And I wanted it, so I asked him to make one for me, and they did. But then I got episode 4, and I'm like, wow, he literally brought it to life, and that was a huge deal to me, just because, you know, it's one of those things that I just spoke to him on the side about, you know, that would help feed me the character, you know, because I have it in my hand. I don't know if a lot of people are able to see it, but there are some scenes where it's in my hand, but you don't look at it, and because it's so dark, you may not see it, but it's there. And that was strictly for me, you know. And then episode 4, he's like, no, I want you to slam that thing on the table, and I want you to talk about it. And I'm like, oh, yeah, let's do it, you know. So
JT
no,
is
man, he's awesome. Like, he's awesome.
And so are you. And thank you for joining me. Thank you for kicking off season 2 of The Love of Acting. Thank you for being my first guest in 2021. And thank you for now the whole Facebook group is ecstatic because the idea of the twin actually exists. So if
Yeah, it definitely does exist. Let's manifest it to come to reality. Let's manifest season 3. You know, so no, I appreciate the time. I appreciate what you do. I appreciate all the support. You know, it's individuals like yourself that, you know, like you said, you got COVID. I had no idea, but you have COVID and you're still doing these interviews with us, and that's remarkable, you know, and I appreciate that, because you know, anytime I start, you know, I'm a human being, and anytime I start feeling a little weak or anything, I remind myself that there's, you know, we have fans out there. We have people like yourself that are helping to promote this project that they, you know, you guys weren't involved with it, but spiritually, because of Bruce, so many people are invested in it, you know, and I think that's the power of Bruce Lee and his family. So, you know, I just want to extend the thank you to you, and I'm sure I'm speaking for my whole cast and crew when I say that. So.
Now, everybody, and you mention, and I say the same thing. It's the Warrior family. I have not met, you know, all the shows and all the people that I talk to, even those shows that have been together for a long, long time. You guys have not. I mean, in your case, it's even longer. But the guys, even from season 2, they haven't been shooting this for a year and a half or so, and they're still talking to each other all the time. It is a family. So
Yeah, no, it is.
That bond is felt even to us who just get a chance to talk to you for a little while. Thank you, man, and thanks to everybody for tuning in. I know, you know, Facebook Warrior group. We're going to be speaking soon. As soon as I can get this cut and posted, we're going to talk about it. So thank you, everybody, for joining. Happy New Year. Stay safe. Wear masks, and if you get COVID, email me. I'll give you my viral protocol, and hopefully I'll help you. Okay. Take care, everybody.